Part 1. The hunt begins. The stars looked cold and distant as Commander Thane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Seeker. His yellow eyes glowed with excitement as he watched the data streams flowing across the screens. After months of traveling through empty space, they had finally found something interesting. Commander said, Subcommander Krell, his voice filled with the same hunger that all Varric felt before a hunt. The scanner reports are complete. The system has one. Planet with life. Thane turned his massive head toward the smaller alien. It's like all Varric. Thane stood nearly 8 feet tall. His body was covered in thick, dark scales that could stop most weapons. His claws were sharp enough to cut through metal, and his teeth could crush bones. For thousands of years, the Varric had been the greatest hunters in their part of the galaxy. Joe. Me the data, Thane ordered. The main screen lit up with images of a blue and green planet. It looked peaceful and quiet as it spun slowly in the darkness of space. The planet had large oceans and brown and green land masses. White clouds moved across its surface like slow, lazy animals. The planet is called Earth by its inhabitants, Krell explained. Our long-range scanners have been watching their transmissions for several months. The dominant species calls itself humans. Thane felt his hunting instincts wake up. It had been too long since the last great hunt. The Varric needed fresh prey to test their skills and feed their young. He looked at the images of the human cities, with their tall buildings and busy streets. Tell me about these humans, he said. Krell touched the control panel, and new images appeared. They showed creatures that looked nothing like the mighty Varric. The humans were small and weak-looking. They had no claws, no natural armor, and no sharp teeth. Their skin looked soft and easy to tear. They walked on 2 legs like the Varric, but they were much shorter and thinner. They are mammals, Commander, Krell reported. They have no natural weapons. Their bodies are fragile. Our medical scanners show that their bones break easily. They have no scales or thick skin for protection. Thane laughed, a deep sound that echoed through the bridge. The other Varric officers joined in. It had been many years since they had found prey this perfect. What weapons do they have? Thane asked. Very primitive, Krell answered. They use simple projectile weapons that fire small metal pieces. Some of their vehicles have larger versions. Of these weapons, their technology is basic compared to ours. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, and no faster-than-light combat ships. The commander walked to another screen that showed human military forces. He watched soldiers running through training exercises. They looked organized, but they were still just weak creatures playing with simple tools. Their reaction time? Thane asked. Slow, Krell said. Much slower than ours. Their reflexes are poor. They cannot see in the dark like we can. They have weak hearing and a poor sense of smell. They are almost blind compared to us. Perfect, Thane thought. These humans would make excellent prey for the great hunt. The Varric had not held a proper hunt in almost 50 years. Their young warriors needed experience, and their elders wanted entertainment. How many ships do they have in space? Thane continued his questions. Very few, Commander. They have some small stations around their planet and a few exploration vessels. Nothing that could challenge even one of our hunting ships. Their space technology is hundreds of years behind ours. Thane nodded with satisfaction. The humans had built themselves a perfect trap. They lived on one world with no way to escape and no real defenses. They had no idea that the Varric were coming. Prepare the hunting fleet, Thane ordered. Send word to all 12 ships. We begin the approach to their system immediately. The bridge became busy with activity. Varric officers worked at their stations, sending messages to the other ships in the fleet. Each ship carried 300 warriors, all eager for the hunt. They had been traveling for months, and their patience was wearing thin. Commander, said another officer, what are your orders for the capture protocols? Thane considered this carefully. The great hunt required live prey for the ceremonies back home. Dead humans would not provide the entertainment that Varric society demanded. Use the stunning nets and sleep gases, he decided. We want them alive but helpless. Let's take at least 10,000 for the home world. The rest can be used for target practice. The officer nodded and began programming the capture systems. The Varric ships carried special equipment designed for hunting. They had nets that could cover entire city blocks, gases that would make large populations fall asleep, and cages that could hold thousands of creatures. "How long until we reach their system?" Thane asked. 18 standard days, Commander, came the reply. "Good. That gives us time to study their behavior patterns and plan our hunting strategy." For the next several hours, the Varric studied everything they could learn about humans. They watched human entertainment broadcasts and learned about human culture. They saw movies about human wars and conflicts. 2. The Varric. These looked like children playing games with toys. They studied human cities and learned about human daily routines. Humans seemed to follow predictable patterns. They went to work in the morning, stayed in buildings during the day, and returned to their homes at night. They gathered in large groups for entertainment and social activities. They live in herds, observed Sub-Commander Krell. "Like the grass eaters on our homeworld. This will make capture much easier," Thane agreed. Herd animals were always the best prey. They panicked easily and ran in predictable directions. The Varric had developed special techniques for hunting herd creatures over thousands of years. The fleet moved through space toward the human system. Each day brought new intelligence about their prey. The humans seemed completely unaware that they were being watched. Their communications were easy to intercept and understand. They had no security measures that the Varric could not easily bypass. "Commander," Krell said one day, "I have been studying their military responses to natural disasters and conflicts. They seem to have some organization, but they are slow to react. It takes them days or weeks to coordinate large-scale responses." "Excellent," Thane replied. "By the time they understand what is happening, the hunt will be over." The Varric had perfected their hunting techniques over millions of years. They would strike fast and hard, capturing as many humans as possible before the weak creatures could organize any kind of response. The humans would be confused and frightened. Just like all prey animals, when faced with superior predators, as the days passed, excitement grew throughout the hunting fleet. Young Varric warriors sharpened their claws and practiced with their capture equipment. Elder hunters told stories of past hunts and shared techniques for handling different types of prey. The humans continued their normal lives, completely unaware that death was approaching from the stars. They went to work, played with their children, and planned for their futures. They had no idea that they had been marked as prey by the galaxy's most successful predators. Commander Thane stood on his bridge and watched the human system grow larger in the distance. Soon the great hunt would begin. Part 2. First contact gone wrong. The morning sky over New York City was clear and blue when the first Varric ships appeared. They came down through the clouds like dark metal birds, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Commander Thane watched from his flagship as 11 other hunting vessels took positions over major cities around the planet. "Begin the hunt," Thane commanded into his communication device. The Varric expected to see humans running in panic through the streets below. They expected screaming and chaos as the weak prey animals realized they were being hunted. Instead, something strange happened. Air raid sirens began wailing across the city. Humans did not run around screaming. They moved quickly but in organized groups toward underground shelters and reinforced buildings. Traffic moved in orderly lines as people evacuated from the city center. "Sub-Commander Krell," Thane called. "Why are they not panicking?" Krell checked his scanning equipment with confusion on his face. "I do not understand, Commander. They are moving in patterns, like they have practiced this before." From high above the city, the Varric watched as human emergency services swung into action. Police cars and fire trucks moved through the streets with purpose. Military vehicles appeared from bases outside the city and began setting up defensive positions. "This is not normal prey behavior," muttered another Varric officer at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. General Brooks stood in the command center, watching radar screens that showed 12 large objects hovering over major cities. He had been a soldier for 30 years, and he knew an invasion when he saw one. "All units, this is not a drill," Brooks spoke into his headset. "We have hostile aircraft over multiple cities. All fighter squadrons are cleared for immediate launch. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Captain Riley ran across the airfield toward her F-22 fighter jet. She had trained for many scenarios, but alien invasion was not one of them. Still, a threat was a threat, and her job was to defend her country. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," Riley said over the radio as her jet lifted off the runway. "We have visual contact with the large bogey over Denver. It's like nothing I've ever seen." The Varric ship over Denver was massive, nearly a mile long and covered in dark armor plating. It hovered silently above the city like a metal mountain. Riley could see weapon ports along its sides and strange blue lights that pulsed with energy. "Phoenix Leader, you are cleared to engage," came the voice from ground control. Riley armed her missiles and locked onto the alien ship, Fox 3. She called as the missile launched from her fighter. The missile struck the Varric ship's side and exploded in a bright flash. To Riley's surprise, pieces of armor plating broke away and fell toward the city below. The ship lurched to one side. "Clearly damaged. Direct hit," Riley reported. "The target is damaged." "Repeat, the bogey is damaged." On board the Varric ship, alarms were blaring. Commander Thane could not believe what had happened. Their armor, which could stop the weapons of every species they had ever hunted, had been breached by primitive human technology. "Damage report," Thane shouted. "Oh, breach on Section 7, an officer reported. The human projectile contained an explosive charge much more powerful than our intelligence suggested." Around the world, similar scenes were playing out. Human fighter jets were engaging Varric ships over every major city. The aliens' hunting vessels, designed for capturing prey rather than fighting wars, were taking damage from human weapons. Over. London Squadron Leader Thompson led 12 Royal Air Force jets in a coordinated attack on the Varric ship. The aliens' return fire was wild and unfocused, as if they had never been in real combat before. "They're not very good at this," Thompson observed over the radio as his missiles found their target. The Varric ships began to descend toward the ground, trying to get close enough to deploy their capture equipment. This was when they encountered the second surprise of the day. Sergeant Torres crouched behind a concrete barrier with his squad of Marines. Watching the alien ship settle into Central Park, he had expected to see creatures that looked like monsters from movies. Instead, the aliens that emerged were tall and strong-looking, but they moved like they had never been shot at before. "They're big," Torres said into his radio, "but they don't know how to take cover." The Varric warriors advanced across the park. In formation, just as they had practiced for hunting expeditions, they carried nets and stunning weapons, expecting to round up helpless humans like cattle. Instead, they walked into carefully prepared kill zones. Torres and his Marines opened fire from concealed positions. Their rifles cracked steadily as bullets struck Varric armor. The aliens' thick scales stopped some shots, but human military ammunition was designed to penetrate armor. Several Varric warriors fell to the ground, wounded or dead. "Take cover," shouted the Varric field commander. But his warriors had never learned how to fight an enemy that shot back. Similar battles were happening in cities around the world. Tokyo Japanese self-defense forces used anti-tank missiles against Varric ground troops. In Berlin, German army units coordinated with police to create defensive perimeters around alien landing sites. The humans were not acting like prey at all. They were acting like soldiers. Back on his flagship, Commander Thane watched his tactical displays with growing alarm. Red indicators showed damage to all 12 hunting ships. His ground forces were taking casualties. The easy hunt he had planned was turning into something else entirely. Commander Krell said nervously, "We have lost contact with 3 ground units. The humans are using coordinated tactics against us." Thane could not understand what was happening. In thousands of years of hunting, the Varric had never encountered prey that fought back effectively. Every species they had found either ran away in panic or died quickly when confronted by superior Varric technology. These humans were different. They did not run. They did not panic. They fought like they had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. "Sir," another officer reported, "our casualty count is rising. The humans seem to know exactly where to aim to penetrate our armor."
Actor.
Amanda Cross worked frantically in her laboratory at MIT. analyzing video footage of the alien attackers that news crews had managed to capture. She was a materials scientist, and she could see weaknesses in the aliens' armor that military commanders needed to know about. The joints, she said into her phone to General Brooks. Their armor has gaps at the joints for movement. Small caliber fire aimed at those spots will penetrate. This information was quickly passed to military units around the world. Human adaptability was already beginning to show. Within hours of first contact, human forces were adjusting their tactics based on observed enemy weaknesses. In Seoul, Lieutenant Park led his unit in an urban combat scenario against Varric forces. The aliens were stronger and tougher than humans, but they moved predictably. They seemed confused by human tactics like flanking maneuvers and covering fire. They fight like they've never had anyone fight back. Park reported to his commander. The Varric had spent millions of years as apex predators. They had never needed to develop real combat skills because their prey had always been weak and defenseless. Now they faced an enemy that was weaker individually, but stronger as a group, and they did not know how to respond. As the first day of invasion continued, it became clear that something had gone very wrong with the Varric's perfect hunt. The prey was fighting back, and fighting back effectively. Part 3. The prey fights back. 3 days had passed since the Varric ships first appeared over Earth's cities. Commander Thane stood in his damaged command center, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. His hunting fleet had lost nearly half of their ground forces, and 2 of his ships were barely functional. "How many warriors do we have left?" Thane asked Sub-Commander Krell. "Approximately 1,800 combat-ready troops across all ships," Krell replied, his voice shaking. "We started with 3,600. Thane's claws dug into the metal console. In 3 days, these weak humans had killed or wounded half of his force. This was supposed to be a simple hunting expedition, not a war. Another officer called out, "The humans are doing something new. They're taking our equipment." On the main screen, Thane watched security footage from the other ground. Human soldiers were carefully removing weapons and devices from fallen Varric warriors. They handled the alien technology with curious hands, examining every piece. Dr. Amanda Cross worked in a makeshift laboratory that had been set up in an abandoned warehouse in Boston. Around her, teams of scientists and engineers studied captured Varric weapons and equipment. The military had brought her everything they could find. "This energy cell is incredible," she said to her assistant, Dr. Bell. "It holds 100 times more power than our best batteries." Dr. Bell nodded as he carefully took apart a Varric stunning weapon. "The circuitry is actually simpler than I expected. It's advanced, but not impossible to understand." "How long before we can copy it?" asked Colonel Park, who was overseeing the reverse engineering project. "Give us 2 weeks for the power cells," Dr. Cross replied. "Maybe a month for the weapons. But we might be able to modify our existing equipment sooner." This was exactly what Commander Thane feared most. The humans were not just fighting back, they were learning. Every piece of Varric technology that fell into human hands made the prey more dangerous. Lieutenant Maria Santos crouched on a rooftop in downtown Los Angeles, watching a Varric patrol move through the street below. The aliens had changed their tactics over the past few days, but they were still predictable. "Phoenix team, this is Overwatch," she whispered into her radio. "Target is moving toward the trap. ETA 2 minutes." The Varric patrol consisted of 6 warriors moving in a tight formation. They had learned to take cover behind cars and buildings, but they still moved like hunters tracking prey rather than soldiers in combat. "Copy, Overwatch," came the reply from Sergeant Davis. "We're in position." Santos had spent hours studying Varric behavior patterns. The aliens were creatures of habit. They always checked the same types of hiding spots. They always approached buildings from the same angles. They never expected their prey to be hunting them. The Varric patrol reached the intersection where Davis and his team were waiting. The humans had placed a damaged Varric weapon in the middle of the street as bait. As expected, the aliens moved to recover their equipment. "Now," Santos whispered. The ambush was perfect.
Ow.
Human soldiers opened fire from 3 directions, catching the Varric warriors in a crossfire. Aliens tried to return fire, but their weapons were designed for stunning prey, not fighting a real battle. Within minutes, all 6 Varric were down. Overwatch, this is Phoenix Team, Davis reported. Package secured. We have 6 Kia and a pile of equipment. Outstanding work, Santos replied. Mark this location for pickup. Similar ambushes were happening. In cities around the world, human forces had stopped trying to fight the Varric head-on. Instead, they used guerrilla tactics, hitting fast and disappearing before the aliens could respond. In London, Captain Thompson worked with SAS units to turn the aliens' own hunting instincts against them. The Varric still thought like predators, which made them vulnerable to traps designed by smarter prey. They're getting frustrated, Thompson observed, as he watched a Varric unit search frantically through an empty building. They expect us to run, but we keep disappearing. The psychological warfare was working. Varric warriors were becoming nervous and jumpy. They started shooting at shadows in empty windows. Their coordination was breaking down as fear replaced confidence. Commander Thane received increasingly desperate reports from his ground commanders. The humans were using tactics that no prey species had ever used before. They set traps, coordinated attacks, and seemed to know exactly where Varric forces would be. Commander Krell said urgently, Ground Unit 7 reports they are surrounded. They're requesting immediate extraction. Patch me through, Thane ordered. The voice that came through. The communication system was filled with panic. Commander, they're everywhere. Can't see them, but they're picking us off one by one. These humans fight like demons. Thane could hear weapons fire in the background, along with the sounds of his warriors crying out in pain and fear. Mighty Varric, who had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, were afraid of their prey. Hold your position, Thane commanded. Sir, with respect, we need to retreat, the ground commander replied. We've lost half our unit. These humans know exactly how we think. Dr. Cross made a breakthrough on the 4th day. She had successfully modified a human portable generator to work with Varric power cells. The result was a weapon that could punch through Varric armor like paper. Test it, Colonel Park ordered. The modified weapon fired a beam of concentrated energy that melted through 6 inches of steel plating. The human soldiers watching the demonstration cheered. How many can we make? Park asked. We need more power cells, Dr. Cross replied. But every dead Varric carries one. Within hours, human forces were field testing weapons that used captured Varric technology. The aliens' own power sources were being turned against them. The hunters were becoming the hunted. Sergeant Torres led his Marines through the ruins of Central Park, hunting for Varric stragglers. His men carried a mixture of human and modified alien weapons. They moved like wolves, stalking prey. Contact. 2 o'clock, whispered Private Johnson. Torres spotted 3 Varric warriors trying to hide behind a destroyed monument. The aliens looked tired and scared. Their armor was damaged, and their movements were desperate. Flank left, Torres ordered. Remember, they're dangerous when cornered. The Marines moved through the rubble with practiced silence. They had been fighting aliens for 4 days, and they had learned to read Varric body language. These 3 were ready to surrender, but Varric warriors never surrendered. The brief fight was over quickly. Human tactics and modified weapons were too much for the exhausted aliens. Torres looked down at the fallen Varric and felt something he had never expected to feel about such powerful creatures. Pity. Sir Johnson said, I'm starting to feel bad for them. Don't, Torres replied. They came here to hunt us. Remember? That, but privately, Torres was beginning to understand something disturbing. These aliens were not evil monsters. They were predators who had never encountered real prey that fought back. They were learning what it felt like to be hunted, and they were terrified. Commander Thane made a decision that no Varric commander had made in recorded history. He ordered his forces to begin a tactical withdrawal from the human cities. The great hunt was over. The prey had become the predator. Part 4. The True Predator, revealed Engineer Lisa. Chen stared at the screens in the captured Varric command ship that had crashed outside Phoenix. The alien vessel was massive inside, with corridors wide enough for 3 humans to walk side by side. Everything was built for creatures much larger than humans, but the technology was surprisingly accessible. "I'm in," she announced to the team of technicians working around her. "Their computer systems are actually less secure than I expected." Chen had been working for 18 hours straight, trying to break into the Verac communication network. The military needed intelligence about enemy numbers and positions. What she found was much more than anyone had expected. "My God," she whispered. As files began downloading to her portable drive, the data showed star maps with dozens of solar systems marked in red. Each red mark represented a species that the Verac had hunted to extinction. There were detailed records of hunting expeditions going back thousands of years. Millions of intelligent beings had died for Verac entertainment. Colonel Park Chen called on her radio. "You need to see this immediately." Within an hour, Colonel Park stood in the captured ship reading the translated files. His face grew darker with each page. The Verac were not just invaders. They were systematic exterminators who had wiped out entire civilizations. "How many species?" Park asked. 47 confirmed extinctions," Chen replied. "And look at this. They have 12 more hunting fleets, scattered across the galaxy. Each fleet targets different regions." Park studied the star maps, showing Verac fleet positions. The aliens had divided the galaxy into hunting zones like a massive game preserve. Earth was just the latest target in a campaign of genocide that had lasted millennia. "What's the fleet composition?" Park asked. Chen pulled up tactical data. "Each hunting fleet has 12 ships, same as the one that attacked us. But some fleets are much larger. There's one with 30 vessels heading toward a system called Beta Centauri. Send this to General Brooks immediately," Park ordered. "Prepare a full intelligence package for the president." The discovery changed everything. This was no longer about defending Earth from alien hunters. Humanity had stumbled into a galaxy-wide war between predators and prey, and they had just learned which side they were supposed to be on. Admiral Robert Kane stood in the Pentagon Situation Room, looking at displays showing the complete Verac fleet network. The president sat at the head of the table, surrounded by military commanders and scientists. "Mr. President," Kane said, "we're not dealing with a single threat. The Verac have been systematically hunting and killing intelligent species for thousands of years." "How many ships total?" the president asked. "Over 200 vessels across 12 fleets," Kane replied. "Each fleet operates independently, but they're all part of the same hunting network." Dr. Cross stepped forward with a tablet computer. "Sir, we've also discovered something else. The Verac have been taking survivors from each hunt back to their homeworld. We estimate they're holding millions of prisoners from dozens of species." Room fell silent as the implications sank in. Somewhere in space, countless beings were being held captive by creatures that viewed them as entertainment. "What are our options?" the president asked. "We have several advantages," Kane replied. "First, the Verac technology is designed for hunting, not war. Second, they've never faced organized resistance before. Third, we've successfully reverse-engineered their faster-than-light drive systems." General Brooks joined the briefing via video link from Colorado. "Mr. President, our engineering teams have successfully modified captured Verac ships. We now have a small fleet of hybrid vessels using both human and alien technology. Recommendations?" the president asked. Kane looked around the room before speaking. "Sir, I recommend we take the fight to them. The Verac have been the galaxy's apex predator for too long. It's time they learned what it feels like to be prey." Commander Thane sat in his damaged flagship reading reports that made his blood run cold. The humans had not only defeated his hunting fleet, they had captured one of his command ships intact. That meant they had access to the entire Verac database. Sub-Commander Krell Thane called, "Send an emergency transmission to the homeworld. Use maximum encryption." Krell worked frantically at his console. "Commander, I'm detecting human signals. Jamming our communications. They're using our own frequency patterns against us." Thane felt something he had never experienced before, true fear. The humans had learned to use Verac technology better than the Verac themselves. They were being hunted by their former prey. "Sir," another officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting multiple human vessels approaching our position. They appear to be modified Verac ships." On the main screen, Thane could see 12 human spacecraft moving toward his fleet. The ships looked wrong. They combined smooth human design with angular Verac technology. It was like seeing prey animals wearing the skins of their predators. Captain Riley commanded the lead human vessel, a modified Verac battleship that the engineers had renamed Vengeance. The ship's original hunting equipment had been replaced with human weapon systems and improved armor. All ships, this is Vengeance Actual. Riley spoke into her communication system. We have visual contact with the Verac fleet. They're trying to retreat. Admiral Kane's voice came through the speakers. It's negative, Vengeance. Do not let them escape. If even one ship gets away, they'll warn the other fleets. Riley studied the tactical display. The remaining Verac ships were badly damaged from days of fighting on Earth. Their crews were demoralized and scared. This would not be a battle, it would be an execution. All ships weapons free, Riley commanded. Target their engines first. We want prisoners. The human fleet opened fire with modified Verac weapons that were 3 times more powerful than the originals. Human engineers had improved on alien technology by removing safety limiters and adding human targeting systems. Thane watched his remaining ships being destroyed one by one. Humans attacked with cold precision, disabling each vessel's ability to escape before moving to the next target. They fought like apex predators who had finally found worthy prey. Commander Krell said desperately, "Our shields are failing. The humans are targeting our weapon systems specifically." How do they know our ship designs so well? Thane wondered. Aloud. The answer was simple but terrifying. The humans had studied every piece of captured Verac technology. They had learned Verac weaknesses better than the Verac knew them themselves. The prey had become master hunters. Dr. Cross worked in the captured Verac ship, analyzing new data that was streaming in from the human fleet's attack. She had discovered something important in the alien communication logs. Colonel Park. She called excitedly, "I found the location of the Verac homeworld. And I found something else, the locations of their prison facilities." Park rushed to her workstation. Prison facilities? The Verac have been keeping survivors from their hunts, Dr. Cross explained. Millions of beings from dozens of species, all being held on various worlds throughout their territory. Park felt his anger growing. The Verac were not just killers, they were slavers who kept their victims alive for ongoing torture and entertainment. "Send this data to Admiral Kane immediately," Park ordered. The mission just got bigger. In space above Earth, Captain Riley watched the last Verac ship surrender. The alien hunting fleet that had come to capture humans for sport was now completely destroyed or captured, but this was just the beginning. "Admiral Kane," Riley reported, "hostile fleet neutralized. We have 3 captured vessels and approximately 200 Verac prisoners." "Outstanding work," Captain Kane replied. "Return to base for debriefing. Phase 2 begins immediately." Riley looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere in that darkness, millions of beings were waiting for rescue. The humans had gone from prey to predator in less than a week. Now they were about to become something the galaxy had never seen before, liberators who hunted the hunters. Part 5. The galaxy's new apex predator 6 months after the first Verac ships appeared over Earth. Admiral Robert Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship Liberation as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Verac homeworld. Around him, a fleet of 50 human vessels moved into attack formation. Admiral Captain Riley reported from her ship. Long-range sensors confirmed the target. The planet matches the coordinates from the captured database. Kane looked at the alien world through the main viewer. It was a dark planet with red oceans and black continents. Massive cities covered its surface, and orbital stations surrounded it like a metal ring. This was the heart of the Verac Empire, the place where they had planned their hunts for thousands of years. "All ships," Kane announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember why we're here? Every being those creatures captured, every species they destroyed, every world they left empty, it all started from this planet. The human fleet had grown rapidly over the past 6 months. Earth's industries worked around the clock to build new ships using captured Verac technology. Every vessel was faster, stronger, and better armed than anything the aliens had ever created. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting over 100 Varric ships in orbit around the planet. They're moving to intercept us. Kane studied the enemy formation. The Varric had called back every available ship to defend their home world. It was the largest fleet they had ever assembled, but it was too late. Begin the attack, Kane ordered. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved with precision and coordination that the Varric could not match. Every human captain had studied Varric tactics and knew exactly how the aliens would respond. Captain Riley led a squadron of fighters through the enemy formation, her pilots using modified Varric weapons with devastating effect. Alien ships exploded in bright flashes as human firepower tore through their armor. Phoenix Squadron, Riley called over the radio. The enemy is breaking formation, trying to retreat to the planet's surface. Negative, came Admiral Kane's voice. Do not let any ship escape. This ends today. Commander Thane, one of the few surviving Varric from the original Earth invasion, tried desperately to coordinate his people's defense from a command station. On the planet's surface, the reports coming in were all the same. Human forces were winning everywhere. How many ships have we lost? Thane asked his aide. 70% of the home fleet is destroyed or disabled, came the terrifying reply. The humans are landing ground forces on the northern continent. Thane could not believe how completely the situation had reversed. 6 months ago, humans were prey animals who lived on one small world. Now they commanded a space fleet that was destroying the mighty Varric Empire. Sir, another officer called, the humans are broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Admiral Kane's voice filled the Varric command center. To all Varric forces, this is Admiral Robert Kane of the Terran Liberation Fleet. Your hunting days are over. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue fighting and face the consequences. Thane laughed bitterly. The humans were offering mercy to creatures who had never shown mercy to anyone else. Even as apex predators, they were still thinking like prey animals. Continue the fight, Thane ordered. We are Varric. We do not surrender. On the planet's surface, human ground forces led by General Brooks advanced through Varric cities. Urban combat was fierce, but the aliens were fighting a defensive war for the first time in their history. They did not know how to protect their own territory. Sergeant Torres led his Marines through a Varric detention facility, searching for prisoners. What they found shocked even experienced soldiers who had seen months of combat. My God, Torres whispered as they opened cell after cell, filled with alien beings from dozens of different species. The prisoners were weak and scared, but alive. Some had been held for years, others for decades. They represented the survivors of worlds that the Varric had hunted to near extinction. This is Torres, the sergeant reported over his radio. We found them. Thousands of prisoners from different species. They're alive, but barely. Dr. Cross worked frantically in a mobile medical unit trying to help the rescued prisoners. Each species had different needs, different biology, different languages. It was like trying to run a hospital for every form of life in the galaxy. Doctor called one of her assistants. We have a group that speaks an Earth language. They say they're from a human colony that was attacked 50 years ago. Dr. Cross rushed to the indicated area and found a group of elderly humans who looked like they had lived through hell. They were descendants of colonists from a ship that had been lost decades earlier. How many humans did they take? Dr. Cross asked gently. Thousands, replied an old woman with tears in her eyes. They used us for hunting practice. We're all that's left. Discovery added fuel to human anger. The Varric had been hunting humans for much longer than anyone had realized. Earth had not been their first target. It was just the latest. Captain Riley received new orders as her ship finished clearing Varric orbital defenses. All fighter squadrons, we have priority targets. Intelligence has located 12 Varric prison. Worlds in this system begin liberation operations immediately. The human fleet split into smaller groups, each heading toward a different world where Varric prisoners were held. What they found was a galaxy-wide network of concentration camps, filled with survivors from extinct civilizations. On each world, the pattern was the same. Varric guards fled or surrendered when faced with human forces. The prison facilities were liberated within hours. Millions of beings who had been slaves for generations suddenly found themselves free. Admiral Kane stood in the ruins of the Varric Central Command Facility, reading files that documented thousands of years of systematic genocide. The aliens had kept detailed records of every species they had hunted, every world they had emptied, every civilization they had destroyed. Sir Colonel Park reported, "We've captured most of the Varric leadership. They're requesting negotiations."
Tell you what,
"Them will negotiate the same way they negotiated with their victims," Kane replied coldly. But as Kane read more of the Varric records, he began to understand something important. The aliens were not evil in the way humans understood evil. They were simply apex predators who had never encountered effective resistance. They hunted because it was their nature, just as humans protected others because it was theirs. "Commander?" Thane was brought to Admiral Kane under heavy guard. Varric commander looked broken and defeated, his proud bearing replaced by the posture of a creature that had learned what it meant to be prey. "Your species is finished as a military force," Kane told him. "Your ships are destroyed, your weapons are captured, and your prisoners are free. What do you have to say?" Thane looked up at the human admiral with something that might have been respect. "You fight well for prey animals," he said quietly. "We were never prey," Kane replied. "You just made the mistake of thinking we were." 6 months later, the galaxy was a different place. Human ships patrolled space lanes that had once belonged to the Varric. The rescued species were slowly rebuilding there. Civilizations with human protection and support, Dr. Cross established research stations throughout former Varric territory working with scientists from dozens of species to share knowledge and technology. The galaxy was becoming a place of cooperation rather than predation. The surviving Varric lived in exile, their empire reduced to a few small colonies under human supervision. They told stories to their young about the soft prey that had become the galaxy's most feared predator. In the end, the Varric's greatest hunt had become their final hunt. They had awakened something in humanity that the galaxy had never seen before. Species that protected the weak by hunting the strong, the prey, had become the predator, and the galaxy was safer for it.